Well, come on, you're not shocked, are you? Still the best, at least from the big two, superhero comic book available, being World's Finest. Now, Wade and Mara are leaving the book for Shazam, I think. I think Mark Waid will be writing it, and but Dan Moore is definitely doing the art. So I don't know when they leave. Maybe the next issue, the 12th one, will be the last one up for them. I don't know, but it's been a very good run and highly unusual in the current era. You know, because it's not so much wokeness and whatnot, which this entire run has had none of it. It's just a lot of the comics are just really bad. They're bland at best, you know. But not so much this one, which seems to recapture the basic storytelling templates of superhero stories that made them what they, you know, the amazing thing that they are, you know, which captured people's imaginations and whatnot over the years. And you could pretty much plug this into any decade the way it was done. And an interesting surprise with this story concerning Boy Thunder. And also somewhat what it would consider to be burdened with an event story that it was meant to set the groundwork for in the backstory, because this series takes place in some nebulous past era of the current run of DC Comics. For that whole business of the devil Nasa and all that sort of thing, leading to Batman versus Robin and on to the Lazarus Planet, which is this event thing. I've only bothered with the Lazarus Planet Alpha, and I guess I'll get the Lazarus Planet Omega, and that'll be that. I read the one about the Superman family, and I don't recommend it. It's just no point in reading that. But that's, you know, other people besides, you know, Wade's involvement is pretty minimal. I'm sure he oversees. There's been some story that he gets pay more than the other creators because he's like the showrunner of the event, which is like, well, I mean, how much did he do? And it's kind of a scandalous thing, but yeah. So anyway, but on this, it's excellent work, and my hope would be others in that industry would look for guidance on it, on just the basic template of how to approach superhero storytelling. And there's a lot of lessons to learn. So anyway, this, for the most part, as far as World's Finest goes, I guess, for now, concludes the Boy Thunder story. So we take a brief little snippet at something we didn't know had happened previously, where the Key tortured him. Poor kid. He's been put through hell. They're pretty hard on him a lot, but good God, he's thrown into this superhero stuff. And then the terrible things that happen to him, he's lost his entire world and his parents and everything. And then he's thrust into this. And then, you know, so you can kind of understand where he's coming from. You know, and this is like took place before he nearly murdered the Joker. And then we got the reveal of who he really is, or rather who he will become. And so there he is, Batman. Now he'll be fine. You know? Now, come on, Batman. Don't you kind of wish this was it? So he says, well, it was an accident, Aqualad. No, it wasn't, you know, and he's out of control. And I mean, well, Aquaman doesn't know, you know, the full story, so I guess you can give a pass here, but they're being rather harsh with him considering the situation. And then Superman says, you know, he's all shocked at him that he tried to kill somebody, and you can't do that. But he's a child, and he just got thrust into this. This is you're kind of not doing so great here, Superman. No, I mean, I guess he just didn't see it coming. But still, you got him more understanding. So, you know, you think, oh, well, this is really making Superman looks, stupid man, looks stupid. But it's just something he didn't anticipate completely, even though they were showing that is the problem and disturbing, but he's in the middle of trying to deal with these villains and all that sort of thing. So it's understandable to some point, but it also explains what's going to happen here. So Batman and Superman says, look, you know what you got to do. It's the only way. Sounds pretty serious. No, it's not that. So Superman says, you're in trouble, so you're coming with me. Robin says, I'll tag along to give him some emotional support. Yeah, okay. So they go to the Fortress of Solitude. Gee, hey, they're not going to kill the kid, are they? No, Superman builds the molecular chamber, and I guess this is a nod to the Superman movie and Superman 2, where Superman willingly gave up his superpowers to be with Lois Lane. And that became a problem when the Kryptonian criminals showed up, and he's like, oh, crap. And unfortunately, the green crystal was still laying around so he could restore his powers. Oh, this is a little different. It's the same concept and all that, but he puts David in there and takes his powers away. Well, my powers will be nothing. Well, you can be a normal boy. That's what we got to do. But Superman just can't quite do it. So, decides he's going to try to guide him more closely and more seriously, and he won't take his powers away. Well, in the meantime, guess who keeps spoiling everything? Well, the Key, he's still chasing after the multiverse, and David he sees as his way to do it. So he brings in some friends to attack the Fortress of Solitude. So turns out it's a good thing David still had his powers, because he had to take him down, take down the Key. And Batman's like, he's got powers? What? Oh, you pussy. But come on, he's considering his guilt on having not been a better mentor or father figure to the kid. I mean, granted, he couldn't. He was busy with a lot of other stuff, but still, he just couldn't bring himself to pull the switch, and get rid of his powers. But still. So it's a good moment, It's like, oh man, you just don't have the spine, do you? So anyway, so he's on the verge of killing this guy, after everything's been put through, and the Key had tortured him and all this stuff, and Superman's, begging him not to do it. You're better than that, and why should I believe you? And Robin says, because Superman never lies. And, so he still looks up to Superman. And so there you go. All right, I'll let him go. Well, there's something wrong. He's come into contact with the ship that delivered him, and it's making him phase out, like he can't fit in to this universe anymore. And so figures the only way for him to safely transport is to get back into the ship and just go. Otherwise it might kill him to do otherwise. And they try to figure out, how can we keep him here? They're trying to contact the Flash. He's busy. They couldn't get him to, maybe he could help this, because that's the sort of thing he does all the time. They can't get him. And David says, it's all right. I'll go. And he thanks them for their help and everything, and they're all like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then he disappears, and Robin thinks, we'll meet him again someday. How can you be so sure? Superman never lied, because Superman says, no matter what it takes, I'll find you, and all this sort of stuff. And off they walk. It's a sort of a sad ending of it all. Now, the thing about David, the revelation of who he is interesting, and certainly I'm assuming it's not just a silly tease, that this would be something that Wade intends to follow up on. Well, I don't know if I should spoil it for you. I can't remember if I spoiled it already in the previous one. But this is a storyline that was dealt with in previous comics as well, for this character that he becomes. And there was even more backstory and origin for him in that, with another character that was there. Well, this other character shows up here. So they're still linking it to it, but every time there's these reboots, whether it's New 52 or Rebirth, the deck gets a little shuffled. So I guess they'll revisit it yet again. But this is actually a very touching story of how they did it. It has a lot of power to it. And it's also sort of foreshadowing events for Batman and Superman, who now have sons. So that sort of thing. And that's kind of what David, was like a precursor for them, where they'll be. And so anyway, all around, a very good run. And hate to see it come to an end. Hopefully the new crew put on the book will follow this template. But considering the state of affairs for comics, I'm dubious of that. Hopefully they'll prove me wrong, because that certainly would be for the best, because this is as good as it gets, certainly now, from one of the mainstream publishers. And speaking of world's finest, going way, way back to the title I remember, was this one. And I think this came out of the DC explosion, which quickly became the DC implosion, because they put out too many titles and overdid it. And back in those days, this was a very big comic book with quite a few stories in it, featuring not just Superman and Batman, but these other backup stories as well. And I said, oh man, this is so cool. And back then it was $1 in 1980. Oh my God, $1. But you got a lot more bang for that buck. But coincidentally, this is another title I'd picked up to read during the week. And, well, look who's there, Super Sons. And of course, Super Sons was an idea they visited several times. There was stuff about the future and whatnot. And lo and behold, they finally actually did it, where Batman and Superman each have sons, until Brian Michael Bendis came along and ruined Superman's son. Not totally. That was finished by Tom Taylor, but nevertheless, just absolutely destroyed the character so that he could just be a vehicle for identity politics and nothing more. Yeah. But anyway, this was a weird story. So it starts off, you see, hey, it's Batman and Superman. No, it's not. It's their sons. This is the son of Batman and the son of Superman teaming up, dealing with these criminals. And hey, what's all this about? And then you see that it's Superman and Batman watching this on a screen. It's just some computer and a simulation that they were messing with in their spare time. Hey, that's cool, Superman. Maybe one day we'll actually have kids who team up. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, the computer is simulation is so well done that they're basically AI, and they begin to suspect they're not real. And in order to survive, they attempt to escape the computer, and they come out of the disintegration pit that was in the Fortress of Solitude, and through the material there, they form bodies for themselves. And they come into the real world, and they're like, hey, I wonder what happened. I don't know. Let's see if we can find our dads. And they take off. They get into some adventures. Superman Jr. shows up. Lois Lane, Superman, I'm not Superman, I'm his son. And she, I didn't know he had a son. Meanwhile, Batman is dealing with thugs and whatnot, almost gets shot, and then Superman Jr. saves him. Hey, you're not Superman. And then his own son shows up. Hey, Dad, Catwoman got your tongue? I bet she did quite a bit, huh? And then he's like, huh? And he has to have a moment. So you can understand, because it's like, hey, he lost his family. That's the whole reason for Batman. And he has to rub away a few tears at the idea that he would actually have a son and a family of his own. Meanwhile, all kinds of terrible things are happening, earthquakes and whatnot, and Superman's fighting to restore it, and he's like, what the hell's going on? He's got to go save people. Here's a hospital just being literally destroyed by an earthquake, and Superman's got to save them there. And then he realizes, oh, the fake Super Sons don't belong here. So their very presence is destroying the world. So what do we do? So he tells them, jump back into the disintegration pit. And that's what they do. They willingly die because they're a danger to them. It seems like, couldn't they have just left the planet or something? I don't know. So that was that. What a weird ending for it all. And then later, Batman's going to feel bad about it, so I guess it's okay. The backup stories, Green Arrow. Of course, it's in the fake city of Star City, I believe he was in. And he has a section of the town called Hell's Acre. It's crime-ridden and all this, and there's this young punk that he captures. The young punk is used as bait to trap him. The scheme that this guy who's, seemingly becoming a stellar citizen when in reality he was a mobster himself. He was a former hitman, and he was trying to conceal these dead bodies and all that sort of stuff. And he finds out. Meanwhile, Oliver Queen, who only wears a mask, yet he has the goatee and mustache. No one notices the two are the same. Writes articles about this situation, and his own publisher was trying to get him to back off, and he wouldn't do it and all that sort of stuff. The art's good, and, it's fine. And it's your basic, superhero dealing with corruption and whatnot. Adam Strange, this is just an adventure. He's got these wars going on the planet Rand that he transports to. I was never big on Adam Strange. It's an interesting sci-fi story of him being beamed back and forth. And they do retell his origin in it, so you can catch up on that. He's got to fight these blue goblins. And something's gone wrong with the Zeta beam that he uses, and they're trying to make a new one. And they do, and it works out, and it's a close call and whatnot. Aquaman returned to New Venice. So there's this city that's in the States that now has canals instead of streets because of some flood. So it's kind of become the hometown of Aquaman. How convenient. But basically, this is a story that revisits his origin and stuff like that, but also delves into some other stories he's got to deal with. So it's all right. And then finally, this is where the Shazam family ended up for a time. But I think it was one of the first times they took a more realistic approach to the art in this one for this run. And so you get more of that. And this one is just centers on Captain Marvel Jr. dealing with some old farts that he fought back in their youth. Keep in mind, in this version of the story, they explained the difference between the Fawcett City Captain Marvel comics and then the DC Shazam line of comics is that Dr. Savannah had frozen them all in suspended animation. And so they were still young when they awoke from that. And so these are some old villains that Captain Marvel Jr. put away, and he runs into them again. They haven't changed their ways after they've left prison. So you got a guy literally from the old West in the 20s and so on. So, it's a fun little story. So that's what World's Finest was for a while. Rather than just being Batman and Superman, you had all this stuff. But it was an initiative that ultimately failed. It was a bit too much for the available market, I guess, at the time. And so they had to streamline then, which was, it seemed like a big deal at the time, which is nothing compared to the dire straits they're in today, because of lackluster stories and whatnot. But if they would learn the lesson of the templates established by the current World's Finest, they'd have something. But it may be too late. We just don't know. They're still printing, so we'll have to see what comes. Anyway, there we go. Another little visit with World's Finest today and yesterday.